Thanks so much for your company tonight. As you know, I often talk about the fact that individuals have got to matter, that big government, big unions, big business seem to be all worried about the entity more than the people who make it up. In the case of government, constituents; in the case of unions, members; and in the case of big business, the customers. Well, one bloke has decided to rail against that. He joins us tonight, Jack McGuire. Nice to meet you, mate, and good to see you. State Secretary of a brand new union for teachers.
Thanks, Gary. That's right. Yeah, we've just launched this week. You might have seen our full-page ad in the Courier Mail today. Okay. We've got 50 new members at the moment, but our phones are ringing hot. Our shtick is that we do everything that the QTU and the Independent Education Union do, but we're half the price because we don't have to prop up a political party.
Well, hang on, what are you doing? Trying to drain the swamp here? Are you sort of, you know, doing a bit of a Trumpy? I mean, what is going? Why would you start a new union? I love the idea of it because I get it, trying to put members ahead of what, the politics?
Absolutely right. Yeah, that's right. We set up the hugely successful Nurses Professional Association.
So you've done this before?
Yeah, we've got 5,000 members, nurse members at the moment. We've had a group of teachers approach us and said, we really like what you're doing with the nurses. Could you do something with the teachers? So here we are. We started this week. So
it's a professional association, but really that's what unions always were anyway, weren't they, in the past? That's right, but we're still defined in the any number of federal pieces of legislation as a union. We are a trade union. We don't register as a registered organisation, though, and we won't ever register as a registered organisation. Right. But, I mean, how does this work? How are you going to get to the table when the negotiations are on? You know, government, particularly Labor government, state Labor governments will want to talk to the teachers' union. You're just going to be let out the door, aren't you? Well, I guess, Gary, we're actually indebted to the state Labor government for bringing in the Human Rights Act, which comes into effect January 1 in 2020. It gives everyone now in Queensland a human right to form and join trade unions. So now we are a trade union, we exist, we're here. If Education Queensland or the Director General or the Education Minister don't want to meet with us, well then that's actually discrimination based on trade union activity and triggers pre-existing discrimination legislation. So I love it. So the state Labor government has brought in a human rights charter of some description. You're making full use of it. You're saying, and I support the concept, the idea that the fundamental right to organise yourself as you see fit. Some people in the workforce can argue their skills, their abilities and get a better wage. Some people can't. So this is what this is all about. And that's right. I mean, the cat's been out of the bag in terms of monopoly unions for about 50 years. The governments, both federally and state, well, federal government, signed up to various ILO, International Labour Organisation conventions, which gave, you know, workers the right, without impediment, to form and join trade unions. And that's what federal legislation has reflected in the Fair Work Act, and then what the Industrial Relations Act in Queensland has had to try and replicate through the Fair Work Act, modelling it off that. So you're really, you know, you're a minnow in a sea full of sharks. Absolutely. So, you know, nothing, as you know, when a shark comes into the water, all the minnows scatter. Are you going to tough it out? I think so. We've got pretty thick skin. I mean, you only have to go to our Facebook page and see all the QTU union officials that have been bombarding us, but it's all a bit of fun. And I guess at the end of the day, it's all about the teachers, and we just want to focus on getting better conditions for teachers and doing what they want, and focus on things that actually affect them, not any sort of ancillary issues. So just down to tin tacks, if a teacher wanted to join your union, they can do that. The membership fee is basically the same as the Queensland Teachers Union? No, a teacher should save about $350 a year. We're roughly half the price because we don't have to put on, you know, people to try and do political things. We don't have to write big fat cheques to the Labor Party. I mean, I guess that was half the reason why we started the nurses and now the teachers, was that nurses and teachers were sick of being cash cows for the Labor Party, quite frankly, whether it be financial donations or in-kind support. How radical you are. You're actually trying to do something for the nurses, the caregivers in our hospitals, and you're trying to do something for the teachers, the educators of the next generation. And that's right, yeah, and we've picked up a lot, even at the federal space, so private school teachers, private nurses, independent schools, those people, we can always represent them as a bargaining agent, and a lot of those people were left behind when the old school monopoly unions were looking after everyone, because if they weren't part of the collective thought, their ideas never got to the table, whereas we look after each individual and the collective. So
all ideas get presented to the table and thrashed out.
Okay, so the Teachers Professional Association of Queensland, are there other people like you in other jurisdictions?
No, not yet, but we're hoping to move into state. But the quickest way you can get us into state is if your viewers go to their teacher friends and say go to www.tpaq.com.au and join up and save money.
All right, good to talk to you, Jack.
Thanks, Gary.